Is it video or just audio?
It's video as well,
Oh,
but
fucking hell.
if you don't want the video release,
No,
then
no, it's fucking fine. Um,
but yeah,
I'm just hungover and depressed.
uh, well, I don't know when this will be released, but we can say that today is the 18th of March. So yesterday was St. Paddy's
St.
Day.
Patrick's Day.
What did you do? What did you do for it?
I was working all day because I've got this new job working for the app making comedy content,
Right.
which is fucking class. And I've been doing it for the past few weeks, but nothing's come out yet. So it's all a bit kind of in the pipeline. So hopefully by the time this comes out,
There'll be something.
there'll be something. So the thing I'm doing with them at the minute is like a Charlie Brooker-esque weekly news roundup of like internet news rather than like news.
That's class. So like what was a news swipe you did or news wipe or
yeah. So it's kind of a mix between that and if anyone's seen the Andrew Schultz things that came out over the
no, I don't think so.
but it's just like it's kind of like satire.
Yeah.
I put in some pretty silly stuff. I try to make it my own and not like how other people have done it. And they're very good. Like they're just a tech startup, and it's set up by the guy who co-founded Rockstar Games and invented EA, so it's a bit fucking legit.
That's class. So it's just basically you taking the piss for
5 to 10 minutes. So they send me headlines on a Friday. I write the script on a Monday, and then they've delayed it massively. So it comes out this Friday.
Right.
Because sorry, that's my internet that's being unstable.
I was wondering
why. Fucking, you'd think living in London, it would just be fine.
You wouldn't have to worry. You would just have internet everywhere you go.
But I think it's because every cunt in the world is working from home.
So well, like I suppose so. Internet
actual
traffic is just like
mad,
insane. How is London?
Look, it's all right. It's difficult to remember that it's worth how expensive it is when nothing's open.
Yeah, I suppose. Yeah, so no, I get that.
And I was home for 6 months.
Yeah.
So I got the but like it was good that I was home for 6 months. I had a really good time and I got back playing like GA and stuff, but it was good to get to that point where I didn't want to be home anymore and
you'd had enough. 6 months is enough.
Oh yeah, and like when all of my siblings started to move back into the house with girlfriends, and it was just like I was trying to make a bunch of stuff, and I like my home studio type setup was like right on top of my bed, and it was just like just wasn't working. So I was like, I need to. The best thing I can do for the family dynamic right now is fuck off back.
Just leave. That's the thing. Home studios are it's something I'm trying to do at the minute. So I'm currently in the kitchen,
but it looks nice.
Thank God, like the plant.
Yeah, it's very Galifianakis.
Yeah, it's between one fern. Yeah.
Well, there could be another fern. We don't know.
I'll work on it. Like it's if the budget increases.
I'm gonna do a new podcast with Vittorio Angelone. It's gonna be me, Fern Brady, Fern Cotton, and Fern Britton. And it's going to be Vittorio Angelone between 3 ferns.
I like it. If you need one, I've got one. Like, you just need 2 more.
No, but I want them all to be people. Why don't Fern Brady find another Fern? She's a great comedian. If you don't know Fern Brady,
no, she's fantastic. I was watching her the other night because we've seen one of her clips. Because the whole obviously the things that have happened over the last week or so with women. Her clip that she does. Have you seen it where it starts with a guy like wolf whistling at her?
Is it where she's eating chips and then yeah. I saw it live.
Oh yeah.
That special's on iPlayer now. I don't know. It was class. I saw that in Edinburgh.
No, she is fantastic.
London actually, just before the pandemic.
Right. I've never actually seen her live. I only came across her about a year ago, maybe. So definitely one.
She should find Fern. Just reach out to Fern Cotton and do a podcast called Between Two Ferns, and it would be the biggest thing in the world.
Yeah, but I don't want to talk to her.
Yeah, but not you. We're not talking about you, Johnny. We're workshopping Fern Brady's career.
Right, okay. I want to be in. I feel like I need to be involved now. We've started it,
Yeah,
but let's see. So let's go
but
back.
sometimes you gotta let them. Gotta let them fly. You
Just
gotta.
let the ferns go.
If you love them, let them leave. You know.
Don't hold the ferns too tightly.
Exactly.
Okay, let's bring it back to, because I don't know who will be watching this, who will be listening to this, but if you could briefly, not in a awkward kind of way, but introduce yourself. How did you first get into comedy? That sort of thing.
I am Vittorio Angelone. I am from Belfast. I am half Italian, which is why I'm called Vittorio Angelone. But I have a strange relationship with being a Belfast-born comedian, in that I didn't start in Belfast. I moved over to London to study at uni. Decided I didn't want to be a classical musician, and then decided I wanted to be a comedian. And now I come back to Northern Ireland every so often and do comedy, and feel very out of the loop.
That's one of the things I wanted to ask you about, because there's very few comedians here who didn't start here. You know, there's very few people that sort of come from another scene and
Yeah.
like do well here, or even perform here. How did you first find it whenever you did? How far into it were you whenever you did your first gig in Belfast?
A year
A year
ish.
into it. But you must have been gigging probably quite a bit because of the opportunities there.
Well, I had a weird start. So I started by setting up a night at my uni monthly and emceeing that. So I did that 9 times over the course of a year.
All right, okay.
So I kind of, like, in a way that's a very harsh way to start, but also in a way it's not.
Yeah, MCing is not like I would never even attempt to MC probably for another couple of years, because it's one of those things. It's a completely different. Well, you might disagree, but I would say it's a completely different sort of skill than just doing straight stand up.
Yeah, definitely. And I've struggled with going back and forward because that's all I didn't write material for the first year. I would just get up and fucking
just talk to the audience
and call them dickheads, you know. And it was an interesting dynamic because it was just very small kind of classical music specific uni.
Yeah.
And like there's other courses on it as well, but it's all very kind of closed circuit. It's an arts university, so like there was in jokes that I could play with, and they're still fun to like. So it was kind of, people think it's mad to start MCing, but I think it was good. Like, it was really beneficial to get me comfortable being on stage, and then I started gigging, and maybe 6 or 9 months after that, I was back in Belfast. The first gig I did in Belfast, I think, in true Belfast fashion, was the Pav.
As most people.
But
started.
I had essentially a week of gigs lined up, because what I did and enjoy doing when I do come back to Belfast is doing every gig available. So the first week I was back, I did Monday at the Pav, Wednesday at Lavery's, Thursday at Limelight, Friday at Accidental, and then Kill Your Darlings.
Saturday afternoon.
Saturday afternoon, yeah.
Yeah.
So I did all of those in a week, and it was great. I remember the Accidental theater one. I remember thinking, like, that was the first time I felt like a good comedian.
Was that in was that in the small room or the bigger room?
In the Book Bar.
But I love the Book Bar.
And I'd done all those gigs that week, and it was something about like Lavery was great, Limelight was like, loved them. It was terrifying, with the biggest shows I'd done, and then the Friday, like 30 people in this wee library essentially, and they got me to close because I think they thought I was further along than I was.
Who else were you on with?
I remember it was quite a few from down south, actually, who I now know more. So Ali O'Rourke was on. Denai Kadane, who's a black Swedish guy, he was on. But in terms of like northern, like Belfast stand-ups, I think
Yeah.
Marcus Keeley emceed it.
Yeah.
And I got on and said he looked like a fat Dylan Moran, or I said he looked like Dylan Moran if he hadn't made it.
So you just decided to roast him.
That's just he, because he brought me on in such a strange way. And look, I don't really know Marcus. I'm sure he's a nice guy, but this is just my only interaction I've had with him. He brought me on and he goes, "This guy has done more Belfast comedy clubs in the past week than I've done ever. So I'd love to see what emails he's sending them." So I got on and he goes, "Welcome to the stage, Vittorio Angelone." And I got on and went, "Marcus, just clips of me doing well at comedy clubs."
which is how you get gigs. Like
this, I mean, it's not fucking rocket science, Marcus.
Yeah. I'm funny, that's why.
But so I went on and Paul, I think, said to me, "Oh, do 15, 20."
Right.
And I was like, "What?" I also got up I remember this gig so specifically. It feels very like formative and feels very like important to me. I did like the second half was 2 trans women comedians, and then me.
Right.
And I got up and did the bit about Marcus and then went, "I've never felt bad for not being a trans woman before, but I feel like I've ruined the theme of the second half."
They were building up momentum and then
I know, it was like, gee, I'm the opposite of a trans woman. But and it was funny because Ali and I can't remember the other girl's name, they both laughed, and then everyone else kind of like responsively chuckled after they realized that it was okay to,
it was okay to laugh. Yeah, it's fine.
Which is the funny thing. People think in London there's a perception from Belfast comedians and any comedians outside of London in the north of England and Scotland and stuff, that London audiences are very fucking woke and very easily offended. But actually what I've found is that's helpful. It's a help rather than a hindrance for kind of on the line material, because there's an agreement in the room that everyone has similar values and everyone knows that if you're saying something potentially racist or any like offensive, these things, like everyone, there's like, it's societal dogma in London that's just like not what you think. You're saying things that you don't think.
Right.
Whereas in Belfast, actually, because like it's kind of, we only discovered gay people a couple of years ago.
They just started appearing forever.
Yeah, and we were like, "Oh, what's going on?" And because there are still people who, or like still a not insignificant number of people who are regressive or bigoted or genuinely racist or sexist or homophobic in Belfast, and they are in government. Well, it's like when you say stuff like that, it's harder to assume that you don't mean it.
Yeah, I think sometimes in Belfast and probably surrounding areas as well, if you said a racist joke or a sexist joke, they would laugh, but at the same time, it would be justifying their opinions.
You have to, you got to identify why the laugh is happening.
Yeah.
And realize that, are we laughing because we all agree that this opinion is ridiculous and flawed, or are we laughing because they are like that?
Yeah, we're laughing because he's speaking the truth. That's
yeah, finally someone said it.
Which is what I think a lot of times comedians, like over the years, that's how people have looked at comedians, as the people who say the things that no one else will say.
Yeah.
But as you said, it is just like, with London audiences, would you write any differently? Or would you write just for you and just your own beliefs or what you think is funny?
I find I have to re-angle the stuff when I go back and forward. So kind of any stuff about me being Irish has to London is, oh, this is what it's like to be here. But when I do
Yeah.
it in Belfast, it has to be like, oh, this is what it's like over there. And
Yeah.
that was a difficult thing because a lot of my whole perspective when I first came back in that first year was, you talk about what makes you different.
Yeah.
Whereas in Belfast, actually, what's probably more interesting is the Italian side of things, and that's the way it was in school. Is I was always the Italian guy,
Yeah.
but now I'm the Irish guy, and no one really cares because it's more.
Yeah.
It
Have
really
you
differentiates you from the surrounding hordes.
have you ever been booked? Like, obviously, whenever you don't, obviously, if you're messaging about gigs, you're saying, regards Vittorio Angelone. You don't put in brackets Belfast accent.
Yeah, I did an Italian speaking gig.
You don't speak Italian, though, do you?
No, not at all. Not at all. And they knew that I was an English speaking act. I made that clear in the emails.
Right.
But I was opening, and the MC was MCing in Italian.
Oh, no.
And all I heard him say, all I understood of his MCing was at one point he went, imitation game. So all I had to go on was, he's spoken about Benedict Cumberbatch at some stage.
Yeah. That's the Stephen Hawking film, isn't it?
No, imitation game's Alan Turing.
Oh yes, the code,
Theory
yes,
of
the Enigma,
Everything.
the Enigma code. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I just had to go, and I was like, my name's Vittorio. I'm sorry.
Did you feel like you were letting all of Italy down?
Yeah, I did. And look, there's always reasons why, because my dad grew up in Belfast as well. So like,
Yeah.
it's the generation above that, and it's because they wanted them to fit in, and they didn't want them to be the weird Italian speaking kids. And like, we had an ice cream shop called Victor's Cafe, but it was owned by a man called Vittorio.
Right.
But they didn't want it to get like fucked up by racists. It eventually got burnt down by racists, but that's beside the point.
But how long did it last?
It was in two different places. One of the locations is where the Divis Flats are now.
Nice area.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, they were a West Belfast, but I'm always frustrated. And look, if anyone's listening in Northern Ireland, we could have been the Morellis. Do you know what I mean? Like, we could, and they are fucking millionaires.
Oh, that's huge. Yeah.
But we're nothing now. Like, no one knows the Angelones. Even the fucking there's other ones. The Fuscos. I think the Fuscos have an ice cream shop, and like there's a few like Italian ice cream and fish and chip dynasties in Belfast, and we don't have one anymore.
I love how we've got the families of it's not the mafia families, it's just the ice cream families.
Oh, but mate, it's because there's an Italian Society of Northern Ireland,
right?
And you've never seen so many leather jackets in your entire life. Like, you go to events for it, whether it's a fucking birthday or whatever, and they have a mass in Italian, and then you go back and like, look, it was just like these weird little moments growing up where, like, as well as Christmas, we had La Befana, which is Italian Christmas, on a different day. And so we would go to, like, somebody would book like a church hall.
Yeah.
And all these little Italian or Italian descended kids would be running. There was like a bouncy castle and all, and like, just like, but then there was definitely some dodgy dealings going down. Like, I remember I went to see The Irishman.
Yeah.
And I remember my distinct thought was, well, if I wanted to see old Italian men handing each other envelopes of money, I'd just go to my dad's birthday party. and I just, like, it was very, and so La Befana, mad story. It's this witch. It's an old evil woman, right?
Right.
And when the wise men were looking for Jesus, they were knocking on a few doors, because I don't know if you've ever tried to find a specific barn by looking under a star, but it's quite broad.
Sounds quite difficult. Yeah.
So they were knocking on a few doors, and they got to this old lady's house, La Befana, and they said, "Oh, we're looking for Jesus Christ. He's the Son of God, and he's going to be born tonight. We want to give him presents." And she basically said, "Fuck away off, you weirdos." And then they left, and then she kind of had a moment of reflection, and she thought, "Oh fuck, I shouldn't have done that. I should have helped." And
Bit harsh.
yeah, a bit harsh. So she went around Bethlehem giving all children presents in the hope that if she gave all children presents, she would
Redeem herself.
well, not redeem her, but she would find Jesus and he would get.
Oh, right, okay.
Because she didn't know he was being born in a barn, but it's like, so she like, yeah. So it's this eve, like we would all sit down in the middle of this church hall, and then some woman dressed as a witch would come in
That's terrifying.
and give us all Christmas presents.
That's terrifying. Like, was it like a Halloween witch where you like where how you dress up a child so it's kind of cute, or was it like terrifying?
It's an old scary witch.
It's an old scary woman.
Yeah, and a black pointy hat and like, and a sack full of gifts.
Was that the alternative to Santa Claus in Italy?
Well, we had Santa as well.
So
and like
both, right? Okay.
Everything's global, like, but
yeah.
But yeah, I think that is the alternative to Santa Claus.
That's the extra one. That's ridiculous. Fantastic. Okay.
Did I answer your question? What question did you ask me?
I haven't asked you a question yet. I think I said what's in your sandwich, and then
no, you asked if I'd ever gigged or been booked like
oh yeah, that's what it was.
I've had people reply to emails from me where I
yeah.
email them in English and they reply in Italian, and I go, look, I actually sent it to my granny and go, "Can you fucking help with this?"
You should have brought her to the gig and had her repeat it. just to
my
decide.
old refugee Italian granny.
No, fantastic. Okay, I've got some more questions, but we'll just run through. It's nothing not too crazy, but the podcast is for now entitled The Sane Asylum. So what I want to ask you is, over the last year, what has kept you sane?
Nothing, John.
Nothing. Okay, next question.
No,
what is it?
I've tried my best, but my problem is simultaneously a good way to keep on top of your mental health is a routine and stay productive and do all that thing, so you at least don't get the crippling shame of not doing anything. But then at the same time, I will ignore mental health problems by plunging into work. Yeah. And look, you've seen me online. It's incessant. Like it's a never-ending stream of shite.
But it's entertaining. It is entertaining.
It is entertaining, and it's good. And it's good. And I make good stuff when I'm having terrible mental health crises. But,
so it's the better your qual. That's how we know you're having a bad time. The better the quality.
If you see a sketch of mine and you go, "Fuck, that's class," send me a message to make sure I'm okay.
Just you. just you okay, hon?
But look, like getting out every day. The one thing that's recently been really fucking good is I got a whiteboard, or we already had it, but I've dedicated to every day. I do a to-do list, and as things go, I get to tick them off. Yeah, because I found in like the freelance and the art stuff, like there's not many like tangible solid tasks that you get to go, that's that done. That's that done. So I break it down into tiny little segments, like I do, and I always include a couple things that I will do anyway. So every day on the list is eat the bagel.
Done.
And it just gives you a sense of, okay, I've done something, and even if it's shower, okay, I did that. And it's just like, and look, there's and sometimes they don't get done, and trying not to get fucking frustrated with myself when they don't get done, and you learn to how long of a list is attainable in a day, and that's been really good. I've tried getting up at the same time every day. Today is like one of the only times I haven't got up, because I was like, look, I'll just turn my alarm off. I've had a mad week. I'm just gonna fucking have a bit
But
more of a sleep.
that's fair though. I think you need that every now and again as well.
That's the
But
thing.
I was talking about this in the last podcast, and it was pretty much what you're saying. Is sometimes it's like the little thing, so it's like a little win,
Yeah.
and having those little wins. Because I'll do that as well. Maybe not on a whiteboard. I'll do it in a diary.
Yeah.
And sometimes it will be just like run the Hoover over, tidy the apartment, things like that.
Because those are big, and you need to give yourself credit for those
Yeah.
things. They're not fucking nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah, like it's and the problem is it sometimes feels like, especially as men, it feels like pathetic, because the perception is, no, you just fucking get on with it.
Just do it. Yeah, you just do it.
But it's like, no, that doesn't work, because look, take it from me, like I got to a stage where I was so obsessed with getting on with it that a few weeks ago I had clinical jaw tension to the point where I couldn't touch my teeth together on one side. Like it was a real issue, and I had to put a hot water bottle on my face every night before bed, and like ibuprofen all the time, and it was like, it was mad as fuck. Like I felt like I couldn't really eat. I was like, just awful.
How did that come out? How did that come about?
Just emotional repression,
right?
And just like fucking just keep it down and just fucking get on with it. And look, like, it's difficult because on some level, you do have to fucking get on with it.
Yeah, to a certain extent. Yeah, no, I would agree. But at the same time, I think it's very important to acknowledge, if you are pushing anything down, acknowledge that it is there.
Yeah, and that's hard. And there's a thing me and my girlfriend say, which is actually comes from controversial psychologist Jordan Peterson. Where say what you want about him, useful at the stuff he's useful at. He talks about tiny dragons,
right?
Which is like little issues in a relationship or within yourself that, when addressed early on, they are very manageable because they're only wee.
Yeah.
But if left ignored, tiny dragons grow and become big dragons that take up your whole fucking house.
Yeah.
And spill over into other aspects of your life. And often all it takes is to acknowledge them.
Yeah.
And the story that it comes from is a son says to his mom, "Oh, there's a tiny dragon under my bed," and his mom says, "Dragons don't exist. Don't be silly." And then eventually the dragon takes up the whole house, and the mum says, "Oh, that dragon's getting a bit big." And as soon as she acknowledges that it's a dragon at all, it starts to get smaller and smaller and smaller.
Nice. That's one thing I definitely agree in terms of relationships as well, because I would have been in the past one of those people, if something annoys me, I will literally just put it to the back of my head and not even acknowledge it. I'm just like, well, that's just the way she is. And then years later, you're like, shit, this is now something that is creating mental health problems.
Yeah, and it's hard in a relationship. That's a good little bit of terminology that me and my girlfriend use, where we do say like, "Oh, this is just a tiny dragon," but
yeah, no, I like that.
X, Y, and Z, and it just makes it a little bit softer, a little bit friendlier, and you're aware it's like because the problem is it can feel petty if you're pulling them up on every little thing or talking about every little thing. It feels like nagging or whatever, but phrase it in that way of a care for the health of the relationship as a whole, and you're like, this is nothing now, but I just don't want it to become a burden for either of us.
Yeah, my girlfriend she's probably going to listen to this, so I hope I get it right. But if she's annoyed about something, she'll give herself like 10 minutes and she'll think about it like for 10 minutes, and then if she thinks, yes, this is still annoying me, then she'll talk about it, because sometimes you just need sort of that wee break to think about it, and sometimes it's nothing, sometimes you maybe need to talk about it.
And there's like, talking about it feels big for some reason. But it's not big, like it's just talking about it, and it's not the like getting into the pattern of talking about every little thing is much better than the alternative.
Which actually brings us on to the next one quite smoothly. Over the last year, what has driven you insane?
I mean, I have a difficult time on social media, where I'm quite active,
Mm-hmm.
but at the same time, I'm getting to that point where I have enough of a following that if people disagree, I get a bit of fucking clapback on any number of things, and that's hard, especially when it doesn't feel justified, and the one thing that really frustrates me is like I make a lot of what people would call like offensive comedy. Like they're pretty out there. I push the line. But it's all silly. I try and keep it all silly, but it does tread into topics, and because I think it is a Northern Irish thing. I think we have a very clear divide in our society, and a lot of stuff bubbling under the surface. But the Northern Irish solution has always been to talk about it incessantly.
Yeah.
And it gets to the point of tedium. Like everyone's sick of Catholic and Protestant jokes and this and that, or sectarian banter, or whatever the fuck you want to call it. But it's like, it's better than what happens in England, where everyone's terrified to talk about race, even though, look, I am in a hugely majority Bangladeshi area in London, and it's like I teach in schools which are Bangladeshi schools, and meet people from Jamaican descent, Somali, Nigerian, Ghanaian, all these things, and it's so interesting, and it is what makes the society tick. And I talk about these things, and people get fucking annoyed because they're like, "Oh, that's not your place to talk about it," and I'm like, "Well, it's not your place to fucking not talk about it." To be frank, like it's like, don't just, and the whole punching up, punching down thing, I think is I think it's a myth. I think the for people who are listening that don't know what it is, people think you should punch up. Every joke should punch up in the power structures within society. You should never make a joke at the expense of someone that has less systemic power than you. Which I think is fucking nonsense, because just because they are being oppressed by society or have less societal power or control or whatever, any number of things, doesn't mean that they're not welcome at the table. And to me, being welcome at the table is everyone making fun of each other.
It's almost more racist to not include them in the whole let's take the piss out of each other.
I hate the term, but it is othering. It kind of puts them to one side and like puts them on a pedestal, and it's like, no, they're just people. And so anyway, I get all this, like, kind of realistically, actually a lot of the actual comedy content is fine, but what happens is anytime I try and say something sincere, or like share a petition, or because I'm like, oh, I've got a platform of sorts, I should probably
use it for good,
and I'll do that, and then someone will reply with a joke I made months ago and go, aren't you the guy that said this? And I'm like, as a joke, like I like, and then I just get dissuaded from doing anything sincere ever, because it's like, well, maybe that's just not my role. And I find that balance really hard, because I probably misguidedly have always or for at least for a good while decided that I refuse to just just be one thing, to kind of be defined by any one thing, which is why like I will quite deliberately, if I have a joke or a sketch or something that gets me a lot of followers, I'll quite deliberately within the next couple months post a poem that I've written to be like, look, I know you came because I roasted your friend on Instagram, but
this is also me.
There's something else. And I think that's a better way to do it, because I think the people who just do, no offense to any fucking poets out there, but your audience probably already agree with you and the points that you're trying to make in your poems, and they probably they definitely already agree that poetry is good and useful.
Yeah.
Whereas the people that follow me on Instagram in fucking Balahi don't have probably never engaged with a poem outside of the classroom.
Yeah, they've never been exposed to it any other
And I
way.
have like electrician mates and all these people who I used to play rugby with who'll comment on a poem and be like, oh, this is classmate. Or they'll be like, oh, what did you mean by this? But I think I get it, but what's that? And I
Yeah.
think that's fucking class. I
Oh
think
yeah.
it's so good because you're talking about things and it's a poem about like men's mental health or whatever. And it's like, and I think that's so much more like useful than like you have to reach out to these people, not that they're a fucking class of people or whatever, but it's like
Yeah.
you just do the poetry wishy-washy artsy check in with your emotion stuff, you're only going to access people that already agree with that stuff because that's what their algorithm is.
No, you're not building a new audience from
Yeah,
that.
but if I make a Celtic Rangers joke one day and then a fucking mental health poem the next day, then you're reaching out to people who might actually fucking need it. So I kind of
Yeah.
I'm getting used to ignoring that that negative side of things, and it is something that you need to practice. And I'm quite nervous about this app thing that I'm doing. This first news roundup. It comes out on Friday tomorrow.
Right.
Fuck.
Where's it going out to? Just on Instagram, just all social media?
YouTube, I think, and
YouTube?
I think I'll have some clips for socials. But
Yeah.
like they posted. It's quite a big company. They posted an ad that's 30 seconds long. It's the only video on their YouTube, and it's got nearly 500,000 views.
So it's
Like they know how to fucking promote stuff.
yeah. So you're gonna be seen whether you like it or not, sort of thing.
Yeah, and look, we all do want to be seen. That's why we're fucking making this stuff. But like,
Yeah.
I am just preparing myself to just disengage with it a little bit.
Yeah. So you're happy to sort of.
I think I have to. There's no way I can
Yeah.
take on the feedback of 500,000 people.
No.
If that's, I mean, it might get fucking 10 views. I don't know. But like,
Yeah, but just to be, yeah. No,
I just have
totally
to be
get that.
aware of it, and it's clocking that stuff. And look, if there's probably people listening who, one would hope there are people listening that aren't comedians. So it might seem like a champagne problem or whatever, but like, and I would have thought that a year ago. I'm going, yeah, but just ignore it. And I would speak to people like Aaron McCann about like he speaks about having a hard time with negative feedback, and the negative comments just really jump out at you. You can get 1,000 people saying it's something's class, and then that, and it's kind of fucking, it's oversaid now, but it can't really be overstated how much. And I read a book recently about cancel culture. It's called, I've got it here. It's called "Don't Applaud, Either Laugh or Don't" by Andrew Hankinson, who was on my podcast recently. But it's fantastic. It's a history of the Comedy Cellar, and it kind of talks about cancel culture and its various iterations. And it said something really interesting, and it said like, no matter what you think about what Louis C.K. did or what you think should have been his punishment or anything like that, to say that he didn't suffer because of it is disingenuous, because if Louis C.K. had, and this is the owner of the Comedy Cellar said this in the book, he said, if Louis C.K. had strung himself up and killed himself, would you have been surprised? And I thought, no. And then you go, it's like, there you go.
Because of the amount of abuse.
You understand that he's done something wrong.
Yeah.
But to say that he hasn't suffered because of it is such a lie. And it's that thing of like, oh, but he's a straight white guy, he's a millionaire, he'll be fine. Like, that's not the only metric you can measure these things by. And I think that's a really important thing to remember, where you see these people getting this abuse online and you go, would you be surprised if they killed themselves? And if the answer is no, then you show a lot of compassion for that person, no matter the situation. You might think that they deserve a punishment, but I don't think I mean, I don't know what other people's views are, but I don't think there's very many people. And I'd say I'll put my neck on the line and say that I don't think there's anyone that deserves to be driven to suicide.
No,
I think that's a fair thing to say.
I think that's a fair statement. It is one of those things, though, nowadays, with especially when it comes to social media, because I don't really put anything out there in terms of actually me. So I'll sometimes post a joke or whatever, that sort of thing. But I would very rarely actually post. Like, I don't even have any stand-up clips because I very rarely record gigs, so I don't even have anything that I put out. So whenever this goes out, probably in the next week or two, this will probably be one of the first things where it's been like, this is a lot of me out there.
Yeah.
And whether it gets listens or not, it's you do feel like I did record the first one about 2 nights ago, and I felt before I did it, I felt as nervous as before a gig.
It's a very exposing place to be in, and I've been doing podcasts from before I did stand up, and it's terrifying, but it's important to remember that the like 80% of tweets are made by like 1% of or 2% of Twitter users, and only like 20% of people are on Twitter, and it's like that thing of like none. It's almost useless to say that none of it's real because you can't conceptualize that properly. But you're right. It's an exposing place to be in, and that's why you fucking do it.
Because you do want it, but at the same time, it's
a wager. I love well, I won't say I love battle rap, but I like the odd battle rap clip, and I like specific rappers. One's called Shuffle T, who's very, very good. And in the summer, I'm doing a comedians versus battle rappers event, and I'm fucking buzzing for it.
That'll be fantastic.
Was that the? I don't care if it was the doorbell. I'm just not going to answer it. Shuffle T, this rapper, he says that, and I think this is a great way to think about anything that you put out there, or any art, any comedy, anything. He says so similar to jokes, battle raps have a setup and a punchline,
right?
And basically, particularly in Shuffle T stuff, every syllable of the setup will rhyme with every syllable of the punchline. It's like multi-syllabic rhyme schemes. Like maybe not every single one, but all the stresses will line up, and it's like, it's very impressive technically, and very funny. He's fantastic. He says that the setup line is a wager,
right?
It's like putting your chips in, and it's going, I bet you this amount of complexity in the setup, because the punchline has to be better. That's how things work. The punchline has to be better than what you wagered with. So it's a wager and it's a payoff. So you bet the audience, and it's the same with a joke. With a setup on a certain topic, if you set up a joke that's about race, that's a pretty sizable wager that you go, I bet you I can make this funny. And the bigger and the good audiences will get excited by that. If they're on board, they'll go, it's not like a scared tension, it's like a, oh my god, because they trust you to pull it off, and they know that the payoff has to be really big for this to pay off. And it's the same with podcasts. The more, like, it's a wager where you go, there's some amount of self-indulgence in being like people will want to listen to me, and the wager maybe for a podcast is it an hour, is it 2 hours, is it 3 hours, how long is it, or how much do you divulge about yourself, and it's a wager of like trying to make it worthwhile and trying to make it interesting for the people and trying to make it pay off. And I just like that thought of like, the more you put out there and the more that you open up is like the more you believe in your own self-worth.
And I like that. I'm gonna check that guy out, because that sounds like. And are you, whenever you're doing it, are you just doing straight jokes like you would do a normal roast, or
So with I've never done it before, but the way a guy called Erg got in touch with me, spelled EURGH, who organizes quite a lot of the battle rap events in the UK, and it's massive. The videos you'll see, there's so many people at these gigs, it's fucking crazy.
huge?
And he reached out and said, "Oh, I got your Instagram from this other comedian. He said you might be up for this battle rap thing." So how it works is I get paired with a battle rapper to go up against, but I also get paired with a battle rapper to help me write the fucking thing.
So it's like tag team.
So I write roasts and then
Yeah.
we make it rhyme, basically.
Right. That sounds
I
sounds so.
I think it's gonna be really good.
No, that sounds fantastic.
Yeah,
Okay. No, moving on. Just to we'll wrap it up in a few minutes, but to put a bit of a lighter spin on it all, over the last year, what's the weirdest thing you've bought, or what's the weirdest habit you've started?
The bagel thing's weird.
Is that only been going for, or how long has that been going?
Good. So maybe just before the pandemic started, I was like, I like this bagel. I'm gonna, and the intention was to make it different every so often, change the permutation of bacon.
What, go from bacon to ham or something?
What a stupid thing to say.
It's on record now.
You can basically track the trajectory of my life in London through bagels.
Right.
In my first year of uni, I was in flat 39 in Halls, and there was something called the flat 39 bagel.
Right.
Which was a bagel with butter, cream cheese, ham, and lettuce.
Sounds
and
nice.
We had them every day for lunch. We would all come back to the flat at 1 for our lunch and eat these identical bagels together. And then
is this what happens in London, or is this just...
Yeah, you just get bagelified. No, I think this is me being weird as fuck. And then for a while I go play comedians football on Sundays, and it's in East London just beside Brick Lane. So I go to Brick Lane's fantastic for bagels. And I would go and get a smoked salmon and cream cheese bagel, which is your very standard bagel. Or sometimes a salt beef one, they're fucking class. But then now, just pre-pandemic, I've started on this train of eating the same bagel every day. And amongst the chaos of the pandemic and all the mad stuff that's going on, like, it's like it's the only thing I'm holding on to.
It's the one thing keeping you sane then, really.
It's my anchor is this bagel every day.
And have you ever...
See, when I fuck it up, see, do you know when you're cutting through a bagel and you diverge at the end and go, and then you get this weird shitty
fuck's
sakes, ruins my day.
Then you're trying to put cream around it. Oh, it's just not. It's not. Have you? So you're obviously making it every day. Have you ever had a day where you've maybe forgotten an ingredient, or it's been out of date?
Yeah, but I will just angrily kind of march around to Tesco and get it. That's a handy thing about London, is like in Belfast, like it's a 15-minute walk to the shop, whereas here I live above a shop.
Right, so you go downstairs.
It's literally so easy. Like, and then the big Tesco is a 3-minute walk away.
Right.
So it's like
you're never far away from.
So handy. Like the chicken I have to get from Tesco, no offense to them, I don't trust the chicken from the shop downstairs. It's probably a front for drugs. And then...
But so they're putting more effort into the drugs than they are the chicken, is that what you're saying?
I think any shop that has fruit outside it to any sizable amount
is a front.
Is a front. Because it's so easy. All you do is you pretend to be a fruit shop, and then on your company books, at the end of the day, you just fuck all the unsold fruit. You stock up on loads of it, fuck it all in the compost heap in the back or whatever.
Yeah.
And then when you're doing your books, just say, oh yeah, we charge £10 per apple.
And then that's it.
And then the money's going through, fine.
So what you're saying is don't trust fruit shops.
Ever.
Just so as on that same note, if I ever see a fruit shop, but I'm more in the mood for drugs, would that be a good place?
Yeah, what would be the code word though?
Could you go in and just be like,
Have you ever seen that the video of the guy in like Bristol or Brighton or something when they're doing the news story about a little chip van was like dealing coke?
No, I don't think so.
And then they get this guy and they go like, oh, did you know that this chip van, and he's there with his like chips whatever, and he goes, did you know this chip van was dealing coke? And he goes like, no. And he like, it's just the worst accent ever. He's like, I don't believe it.
just doing a line off a Big Daddy sausage.
Oh, it's so funny.
That's fantastic. Okay, just to wrap it up then quickly, what do you want to achieve between, say, the next 5 years? Where do you see yourself, and do you have any goals as such?
I used to not like goals. Because I think they only lead to disappointment. But like, even if you achieve them, I think it leads to disappointment because it's not, once you get there, everything's not going to be okay. And whoever you are at that stage isn't going to be who you are now. So it's not going to feel the way you want it to feel. It'll always be overhyped. If Gary V ever buys the New York Jets, he'll fucking kill himself. Like, there's no...
Oh yeah, because that'll be it.
It's game over. Like, that's his whole reason to exist.
Yeah.
And so, but I used to not like them, but I think they are helpful, probably. I have really only one that I am keen, just because I think it's so stupid. I want to do a tour of all. So I auditioned for drama school after I went to music college to train as an actor, and I didn't get in anywhere. And I want to do a tour where I sell out the theaters of all the drama schools that didn't let me in.
That's great, and that is such a personal goal. It's not even something.
No one else wants to do that.
Like, like how do you even promote that or market that? Because it's
the fuck you tour. That's what it's called. And I give free tickets to every audition panelist who decided that I wasn't good enough, and I go, where are you now?
That's fantastic. I will, if you do that, I will 100% come to them all.
Well, because they'll all be very specific, and I'll just shit all over whatever their audition process was.
Just rip them to pieces. Okay, well, this has been fantastic. Thank you so much for coming on and giving us your wisdom.
Thank you for having me. That was fun.
And I really enjoyed that. We definitely have you on again because I feel like there's so much that we didn't talk about. I
have been in therapy since I was 9, so if there's anyone equipped to talk about mental health,
you're pretty qualified. Well, not necessarily qualified, but
I've lived experience, as they say.
You've been there. But yeah, no, 100%. We'll wrap it up there. But again, thank you. So we'll do the awkward goodbye where I hit stop.
Should I plug shit? Oh, listen or watch the No Blacks, No Dogs, No Irish podcast. That's all I want to plug.
Yep. Perfect. I'll share it all. Whenever I'm sharing the podcast, I'll make sure I put all the links. But thanks again. All the best.
Bye.